It sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? That the very thing which seems to wound a man's pride could also ignite his deepest desire. But here's the truth. A man's ego isn't fragile. It's sacred. It's the psychological fortress he's built to protect the meaning he's carved from chaos. When you challenge that, you don't destroy him, you awaken him. Most people think love grows through validation, through soft words and endless reassurance. But real connection doesn't come from safety. It comes from pressure. When you press on someone's ego, you test what they're made of. You call out their insecurities, and in doing so, you give them the chance to rise above them. That's not cruelty, that's respect. Because here's the reality, men don't fall in love with comfort. They fall in love with the woman who reminds them they're not done yet. The one who looks at their potential and refuses to let them settle for mediocrity. When you hurt a man's ego, when you question the story he tells himself, you're forcing him to confront who he really is. And in that friction, in that storm of pride and vulnerability, something powerful happens, admiration. You see, men crave respect more than affection. They can find comfort anywhere, but respect is earned only through challenge. The woman who can pierce his ego without trying to dominate it, that's the woman he cannot forget, because she doesn't feed his illusions, she exposes his truth. Hebrew, most people confuse ego with arrogance, but ego is simply identity. It's the framework that tells a man he matters. When you strike that framework, you're not destroying it, you're remodeling it. You're saying, I see who you could be, not just who you are. And when he senses that from you, it changes everything. You don't inspire a man by making him feel perfect. You inspire him by reminding him he's not. You challenge his pride, and if he's the right kind of man, he won't run, he'll rebuild, he'll fight to be worthy again, not because you demanded it, but because your strength silently commands it. And here's the paradox. The woman who dares to bruise his ego with truth ends up becoming the very person he's most loyal to. Because she's not a mirror reflecting his fantasies, she's a force sharpening his reality. Think about it. Every great man in history was shaped not by the people who coddled him, but by those who challenged him, his rivals, his mentors, his lovers. They struck his ego and forced him to evolve. It's pain that wakes potential. And in relationships, it's the same law. When a woman embodies her own worth so deeply that a man feels he must rise to meet her, his love becomes something primal, devoted, relentless, and real. But make no mistake, hurting his ego doesn't mean humiliating him. It's not about playing games or breaking him down. It's about testing his depth. It's about showing him that you see through his armor and you won't be intimidated by it. You respect his strength, but you also demand his growth. It's not cruelty. It's the purest form of connection. Because love without challenge becomes complacency, and a man who's never tested can never truly respect the woman beside him. He needs to feel that your presence calls him higher, that your words carry weight, that your silence means something. When he senses that, his attraction shifts from surface level to soul deep. The truth is, he doesn't want to love someone who worships him. He wants to love someone who anchors him. The kind of woman who can wound his pride and still stand there, calm, grounded, unbothered, while he wrestles with himself. Because he'll realize that what hurts him most isn't your words, it's the truth they reveal. And when he finally confronts that truth, he'll come back stronger, clearer, more devoted. Because you didn't weaken him. You refined him. You became the mirror that showed him both his flaws and his potential. And for a man of depth, that's addictive. So yes, hurt his ego, but do it with purpose. Not to prove your power, but to awaken his. Challenge him not from bitterness, but from strength. Because the woman who's willing to disrupt his comfort becomes the woman who commands his respect. And from that respect grows something far deeper than infatuation. Devotion. In a world full of superficial approval, be the one who dares to confront, not console, because real love isn't about making him feel safe, it's about making him feel seen. Respect is not handed out like a gift, it's forged in the fires of resistance. You don't earn it by making life easy for others, and you don't command it by demanding obedience. Respect comes when you stand unshaken in the presence of opposition, when you challenge not to destroy but to awaken. Comfort feels good, but it builds nothing. It softens your edges, dulls your instincts, and breeds complacency. Challenge, on the other hand, sharpens you. It draws out your depth, your strength, your real value. People might not like you for challenging them, but in time they'll respect you for it, because deep down everyone craves the presence of someone who refuses to let them stay small. Think about it. No one admires the person who pleases everyone. They admire the one who speaks the truth even when it shakes the room. They respect the one who sets boundaries, who holds their ground when it would be easier to fold. Respect doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in the friction between truth and weakness. Every relationship, every leadership, every legacy that endures is built on this principle. When you give comfort, you might win affection, but when you bring challenge, you earn admiration. The people who truly respect you are not the ones who always agree with you. They are the ones who've tested you and found that you do not bend under pressure. Yebra challenge reveals who you are. It strips away the false layers you wear to be accepted. It forces you to decide, will you stand for something or will you shrink to fit in? And every you choose the former, you build a kind of strength that others cannot ignore. That strength commands respect, not through fear, but through presence. Habra comfort tempts you to seek approval. Challenge teaches you to earn it. Comfort makes you blend in. Challenge makes you stand out. The world respects the person who holds the line, who says no when everyone else is saying yes, who is willing to be misunderstood for the sake of being real. That's where authenticity lives, in the tension between what's easy and what's right. True respect doesn't arise when people agree with you. It arises when they recognize your integrity. They may argue, they may resist, but deep down they feel it. That rare energy of someone who refuses to compromise their principles. And that energy commands more loyalty than charm ever could. Challenge is uncomfortable, but it's also sacred. It's how you separate the genuine from the superficial. When you challenge others, you're saying, I believe you can be more than this. When you challenge yourself, you're proving it. You grow respect both ways, through courage and through accountability. The strongest people you know didn't gain respect by chasing validation. They earned it by standing in the storm, by choosing truth over popularity, discipline over distraction, and principle over peace. The more resistance they faced, the deeper their roots grew. Because challenge doesn't weaken character, it reveals it. You can't be respected if you never take a stand. You can't inspire anyone if you're always trying to be liked. Respect doesn't come from how softly you speak. It comes from the weight behind your words. The conviction that you've paid the price to mean what you say. Every person who has ever built something that lasted, a career, a movement, a legacy, did so by walking away from comfort. Because comfort kills growth. It numbs hunger, it silences fire, but challenge ignites it. Challenge strips away excuses and exposes truth. And people can't help but respect truth when they see it, even if it makes them uncomfortable. So, if you want respect, stop seeking ease. Speak when silence is safer. Push yourself when no one's watching. Confront what others avoid. Don't chase harmony, create strength. Because when people see that you are willing to endure discomfort for the sake of something greater, they begin to trust you. And trust is the foundation of all real respect. Respect is born from challenge because challenge reveals value. It shows who's willing to fight for what matters. It separates talkers from doers, pretenders from believers, comfort seekers from warriors. When you live this truth, when you embrace the tension instead of running from it, you stop needing respect, you become it. And in that moment, you understand something few ever do. Comfort gives you peace for a night. Challenge gives you purpose for a lifetime. A man's ego is not weakness. It's not arrogance. It's not vanity. It is the armor he builds to survive a world that demands strength even when he feels none. His ego is the story that keeps him standing when everything around him tries to break him. It's not the enemy. It's the defense mechanism of a mind that refuses to collapse. But like any armor, it can become too heavy, too rigid, too blinding. That's why it must be struck, not with cruelty, not with bitterness, but with precision. You see, most people either attack a man's ego or worship it. Both are mistakes. When you attack it with resentment, you provoke his defenses. You don't reach the man behind it, you just strengthen the wall he hides behind. When you worship it, you make him weak. You feed the illusion that he's already complete and he stops growing. But when you strike it with precision, with truth, with calmness, with strength, you wake him up, you make him feel again. A man's ego protects his pride, but also imprisons his potential. It tells him, you're fine as you are, when deep down he knows he's not. It convinces him that admitting weakness is failure, that humility is defeat. But the truth is, every man needs moments that cut through that illusion, moments that remind him his worth isn't in his armor, but in his honesty. When someone strikes his ego correctly, it doesn't destroy him, it refines him. Precision means truth without venom. It's not meant to belittle, it's meant to reveal. It's saying, you're better than the image you're hiding behind. That kind of impact doesn't humiliate a man, it transforms him. Because real strength isn't about being untouchable, it's about being unafraid to confront what's true. Ego is necessary. Without it, a man becomes aimless, uncertain, lost in self-doubt. Ego gives him identity, focus, direction. But left unchecked, it turns into blindness, the inability to hear, to learn, to evolve. That's why precision is the key. You don't destroy a man's ego to make him humble. You challenge it to make him aware. You hit where it's thickest, where pride has replaced purpose, and remind him what's real. But let me be clear, resentment never leads to transformation. When you strike a man's ego with anger, he only learns to defend. When you strike it with calm strength, he learns to reflect. The tone changes everything. One provokes resistance, the other ignites respect. That's why only people of depth, people who see beyond surface, can truly reach a man. Because they don't seek to win against him, they seek to awaken him. To strike the ego with precision means you understand timing, tone, and truth. You don't attack him in his lowest moment. You wait until he's ready to listen. You don't humiliate, you reveal. You don't mock his pride, you mirror his potential. That's power, that's influence. That's how you awaken the kind of man who stops living for validation and starts living for growth. Every man's ego is his armor, and every armor has cracks, not flaws, openings. Openings that only truth can enter through. When spoken right, truth doesn't break him, it rebuilds him. Because deep down, even the proudest man wants someone who can see past his defenses, someone who doesn't fear his strength but understands his struggle. So when you challenge a man, do it with purpose. Don't to win an argument. Aim to awaken his awareness. Don't try to tear down his pride. Aim to remind him where it came from. Most men build their egos to protect a wound of failure, of rejection, of not being enough. When you hit that ego without empathy, you reopen that wound. But when you strike it with wisdom, you help him heal it. A man who's never had his ego tested will never mature. He'll stay trapped in performance, always trying to look powerful, never learning to be powerful. But the one who's been challenged by truth, especially from someone he respects, becomes grounded. His confidence stops depending on admiration. It begins to flow from integrity.
The goal isn't to make him small, it's to make him
Aware. To remind him that his armor doesn't define him, his courage does. That real strength isn't about never being wrong, it's about facing what's true without running. And when you can deliver that kind of truth, without resentment, without ego of your own, you don't just earn his respect, you shape his evolution. Remember, ego is not evil, it's essential. It just needs guidance. It needs someone willing to see both the man and the mask and to call out the difference. When you can do that with grace, you don't destroy his power, you deepen it. You make him sharper, calmer, wiser. So strike the ego, but strike it with mastery, with awareness, with precision. Not to dominate, but to elevate. Because when you challenge a man correctly, he doesn't see you as an enemy. He sees you as a mirror, the kind of mirror that doesn't flatter, but reveals. And in a world full of noise and false validation, the one who can reveal truth without resentment becomes unforgettable, not because they broke his armor, but because they taught him how to wear it with honor. Attraction isn't built on how much a woman gives in. It's built on how much she stands for. The power that pulls a man in isn't born from obedience or need. It comes from presence, from groundedness, from that quiet, immovable confidence that says, I don't need to be chosen to know my worth. That's what captivates a man at his core, not weakness disguised as sweetness, but strength wrapped in grace. Submission may win attention, but strength wins respect, and respect is the foundation of real attraction. A woman who embodies strength doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't plead to be seen. She knows that connection built on dependency always collapses, but the kind that grows from equality, from challenge, from mutual respect, that's the one that lasts. The modern world confuses softness with submission. It tells women to be agreeable, to please, to adapt, but what men truly crave isn't another follower. It's a counterpart. Someone who mirrors his potential, not his comfort. A woman's strength isn't about dominance. It's about self-possession. It's the calm assurance that she can stand alone. And because she can also choose to stand with someone without losing herself. When a woman embodies strength, everything about her energy changes. Her presence commands attention without demanding it. Her silence carries weight. Her boundaries define the quality of her relationships. She doesn't seek validation. She gives direction. Her love doesn't come from fear of losing someone, but from the joy of sharing who she already is. Strength, in its pure form, is not aggression. It's clarity. It's the power to know what she deserves, and the discipline to not settle for less. It's the courage to walk away from what weakens her spirit, no matter how tempting it feels in the moment. And paradoxically, that's what pulls men in even deeper, because nothing is more magnetic than a woman who doesn't need love to feel complete, but chooses love from a place of wholeness. When a woman submits out of fear, she teaches others how to treat her, and they learn quickly that she'll tolerate less than she deserves. But when she stands in her power, she sets the standard, not with words, but with energy. Men rise differently around her. They become sharper, more intentional, more masculine. Because her strength doesn't challenge their pride, it awakens their purpose. Every man worth his potential is drawn to a woman who challenges him, not with hostility, but with presence. When she doesn't fold at the first sign of pressure, when she can hold her own in silence, when she demands truth through her calm, she earns something submission could never buy, his respect. And once a man respects a woman, attraction turns into devotion. Aparis submission creates dependence, strength creates polarity, and polarity is what keeps attraction alive. The fire between two people doesn't come from control, it comes from tension, from knowing you are both free, both powerful, both capable of walking away, but choosing to stay because something real exists between you. A woman of strength doesn't measure her worth by how much someone loves her. She measures it by how deeply she honors herself. She doesn't dim her light to make others comfortable. She doesn't trade her peace for attention. She leads with values, not emotions. And because of that, her love becomes rare, the kind that inspires, not consumes. There's a quiet danger in strength, not because it's loud or forceful, but because it's untouchable. It's the kind of energy that can't be manipulated. You can't guilt her, you can't control her, you can't convince her to betray herself. She's too rooted, too self-aware, and that's what makes her unforgettable. When a woman embodies strength, she becomes a mirror to every man she meets. Some will be intimidated by her because she exposes insecurity. Others will be inspired by her because she awakens their greatness. But she doesn't bend to be understood by either. Her job isn't to make others comfortable, it's to live her truth fully. Real femininity is not submission, it's sovereignty. It's emotional intelligence, self-control, and the courage to choose standards over impulses. The strongest women aren't cold, they're composed. They feel deeply but refuse to lose themselves in those feelings. And that's where their power lies, in the ability to love fully without surrendering identity. The truth is, attraction fades when it's built on dependence, but it deepens endlessly when it's built on mutual strength. When both people stand tall, independent yet connected, desire becomes respect, and respect becomes devotion. A man doesn't want to conquer that kind of woman. He wants to protect her, honor her, build with her. Because he knows that her presence doesn't just make his life softer, it makes it sharper, stronger, more alive. So if you want attraction that lasts, don't submit to be loved. Evolve to be respected. Don't seek to be needed. Be undeniable. Embody strength and let that strength speak for you. Because when you hold your ground, when you lead with integrity, when you remain calm in the face of chaos, that's when love stops being a game and becomes a force. Ebro, attraction is not about being perfect. It's about being real. And the realest kind of woman is the one who refuses to shrink to fit anyone's expectations. She doesn't chase attention, she attracts alignment. She doesn't beg to be chosen, she chooses herself first. And that's why her love is powerful. Because it's not built on submission, it's built on strength, the kind that makes a man want to rise, not rule, the kind that doesn't fade with time, but deepens with respect. Hebrew, a man never cherishes what comes easily. He admires what he earns, he respects what he works for, and he values most the person who makes him grow to deserve them. The truth is simple but profound. If he doesn't have to rise to meet your standard, he'll never feel the weight of what he's gained or the fear of losing it. When a woman lowers herself to be understood, she becomes ordinary. When she holds her ground, when she requires effort, when she silently demands elevation through her presence, she becomes unforgettable. Because effort transforms attraction into devotion, it turns interest into investment. A man's nature is to pursue, to strive, to conquer. But when there's nothing to climb, nothing to earn, his energy dies. When you make yourself too easy to reach, you rob him of his purpose. A man's respect grows in proportion to the difficulty of the climb. Not because he enjoys struggle for its own sake, but because effort gives meaning. If he must rise, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, to meet you, he becomes a better man in the process. And that transformation is what makes him treasure you. Abrika, don't confuse a veil. Ability with connection. Connection isn't born from how often you say yes. It's born from how clearly you embody worth. When you stand firm in your standards, you send a signal, I'm not here to be taken, I'm here to be chosen by someone who's ready. That's the difference between attraction that fades and attraction that forges devotion. The truth is, every man is subconsciously searching for a challenge that calls him forward, not a game, not manipulation. a challenge with meaning, something or someone that demands discipline, focus, and consistency. When he meets a woman who embodies depth and self-respect, he senses that he must rise. He must sharpen his words, strengthen his actions, clarify his intentions. Because to be close to her, he must align with his highest self. And that's why he values her. Not because she's unattainable, but because she's authentic, because her energy doesn't bend for attention, because she won't compromise her peace just to keep him comfortable. He values her because she represents something sacred, a reminder that real love isn't given, it's earned. A man who doesn't have to rise for you will never truly see your worth. He'll admire your beauty, enjoy your presence, maybe even love your softness, but he won't honor you. Honor is built when he recognizes the cost of what he's receiving. And that cost isn't manipulation, it's the natural consequence of your self-respect. Vibra, think about it. When he has to earn your time, he treasures it. When he has to work for your trust, he protects it. When he has to grow to deserve your presence, he evolves through it. And that growth is the root of real masculine fulfillment, not control, but challenge, not ownership, but purpose. The easiest way to destroy a man's motivation is to remove the need for him to earn anything. The moment he feels you'll always be there, no matter what he gives, he stops giving. Not because he's cruel, but because his nature thrives on effort. Effort gives him pride. It makes his victory meaningful. And when you take that away, you take away his respect for you and for himself. So don't lower your standards out of fear of losing him. If you must shrink to be loved, you're not being loved, you're being tolerated. Let him rise, let him chase depth instead of comfort. Because if he truly wants you, he will adjust his life to meet your level. A man values what he must grow to hold. This is not about playing hard to get, it's about being hard to replace. When your energy is grounded, your boundaries clear, and your self-worth unwavering, you naturally command effort. You don't have to demand it, it comes to you. Because men instinctively respect what doesn't bend. They trust what doesn't need them to exist. If a man has to earn you, he becomes invested in you. And that investment doesn't just bind his time, it binds his heart. Because what we earn, we protect. What we struggle for, we honor. What we fight to keep, we never forg. So hold your standard. Be the test, not the trophy. Be the woman who calls forth greatness, not the one who rewards mediocrity. The man who truly desires you won't be scared off by the climb, he'll be inspired by it. Because in reaching for you, he'll find himself. The truth every strong woman must know is this: love given too quickly teaches laziness. Love that requires elevation teaches reverence. When he must rise, when he must face his fears, when he must become more than he was yesterday, that's when his attraction deepens beyond surface level desire. Because at that point, it's not about wanting you, it's about becoming worthy of you. And that's a transformation no man forgets. Ibrukhi, so let him rise. Don't rescue him from the work. Don't smooth out the path. Don't lower your crown just because he isn't tall enough to reach it yet. Wait, watch. Let his growth prove his intentions, because the man who truly values you will climb, not because you demanded it, but because your worth made him want to. And when he finally reaches you, not by luck but by effort, he won't just hold you, he'll honor you, because he'll know that what he has wasn't given, it was earned. And that's the kind of love that never fades.